Mike, this is what I call Selfish Politicians Week. The agenda is really all about political power, has nothing to do with concerns of Wisconsinites, and the issues they care about. This is about consolidation of power. And it starts today with legislation that would change the John Doe law, and the John Doe law is used to investigate crimes in Wisconsin. And so the Assembly and Senate are going to take up a bill that will carve out a special exemption for politicians that corruption cannot be investigated utilizing the effective John Doe legislation, which, by the way, was the only way we were able to uncover the corruption in the Capitol, and you remember this because you were covering part of it, the Legislative Caucus scandal that brought down Chuck Qualla, Scott Jensen, Mickey Foti, Brian Burke. Remember those guys?
I think some of those guys actually ended up going to jail, if it wasn't.
They did, exactly. And that was because that we were able to utilize this John Doe investigatory process to ferret out corruption, provide people with immunity from prosecution to testify, and that's the only way we were able to do it. And so what the bill today is to carve out a special exemption, not for you, not for me, not for any of your listeners, but for politicians. If they engage in political corruption, the John Doe law cannot be used to go after them. So that's today. And then tomorrow, as you mentioned, in the Assembly, they're going to take up a bill to destroy the overseer of elections, campaign finance law and ethics, the Government Accountability Board, which is 6 retired judges that were unanimously supported in 2007 when this legislation was created by Republicans and Democrats. They want to take away its investigatory ability, and they want to replace it with partisan hacks that they appoint so that there'll be no enforcement of campaign finance law, ethics law, lobby law, or election law. And then that's followed by really the complete deregulation of any limits on money in Wisconsin politics and the ability to be able to throw endless secret money into elections without voters knowing where the money's coming from. It'll legalize formally what was prohibited, which is coordination between candidates with outside spending groups, so that they can spend as much money secretly as possible. And again, and the worst part is that it will allow legislative leaders, Robin Voss, Scott Fitzgerald, the leaders of the legislature, to take unlimited money into their own legislative campaign committees to control the rank and file members so that there won't be any dissent. Yeah. It really is, in my 20 years at Common Cause, the most astonishing assault on the underpinnings of democracy that we've ever encountered in this state, and people ought to be real afraid of the outcome.
Jay Heck of Common Cause is with us on the Mitch Hink Show. Is this going to put Wisconsin out of step with the rest of the country? I know we always had strong campaign finance stuff here. I mean, are other states doing the same thing?
Not like we are. We used to be a model for the rest of the country in terms of the ethics of our state government. That's been gone for a while. Yeah. But this will bring our campaign finance law somewhere between Texas and Mississippi.
Well, there you go. It's easier to raise money, I would think, if people don't have to disclose who they are or where it's coming from. I know when I was covering the State House, this is many years ago, I would have to go down to the state offices and literally dig through the paper reports. Right. I remember trying to figure out who's giving money to Tommy Thompson, and we would go through and write it down on a pad of paper. And I remember when the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign finally got some of that stuff up online. Yeah. And I think that, it's just the access is so crucial for not just reporters, but I think that the general population. Do people just not care about this stuff that much? You mentioned that 9 out of people want people out of politics, but this doesn't seem to light up the phone lines. This doesn't, you don't see people protesting down at the Capitol about campaign finance stuff. Well,
it's the combination of the campaign finance, the ethics, the dissolution of the GAB, but there's actually been a lot of of citizens calling in. I know that there are plenty of people that get this and they're upset about it. Mm-hmm. What's happened, Mike, is that 2 weeks ago, none of this was even out there. Mm-hmm. The campaign finance and the GAB bill were unveiled for the first time less than 2 weeks ago, rammed through a public hearing last week, and are scheduled on the floor this week. The people of the state haven't had a chance to even digest it.
They call that. Jake,
what do they call that?
That's breakneck speed.
Breakneck speed,
Isn't
exactly.
that the term?
But the sense of powerlessness is, I think, where people are mistaken. There is a lot of power that citizens have if they just utilize it. So many people are so busy with their everyday lives they don't tune in. I think we're seeing the pushback begin on these things. People get that this is deep-seated raw political power designed to take complete control, but also creating an atmosphere where corruption can flourish, and where that corruption then cannot be investigated, and the laws that we used to have against corruption can't be enforced. People understand that basicness about what's happening this week in the Capitol.
You think it's somehow couched in freedom, that it's a free speech issue?
The First Amendment. Which is laughable, actually, because we also, one of the other rights we have under the Constitution is to be free from corruption and to be free from dishonest politicians and to be able to prosecute people who violate the public trust. That's also very ingrained in the Constitution and in our laws in the state and in the nation. So, you've heard the old expression, Mike, I'm sure, that patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. And that's what they do. They wrap themselves in the flag and they say the First Amendment protects all this silent speech. And that's just not true. That's not what the First Amendment does. And they have no other arguments, so they resort to doing that. But I think they've overreached, as they always do, and that we're probably sooner rather than later going to see another corruption scandal on the scale that we saw in 2002, the legislative caucus scandal. And you remember that time. It paralyzed state government. It brought down the top leaders of both political parties. Yeah. And that's what the arrogance
Sent
of power
people to jail, Jay. Can you even imagine that today? All right, Absolutely. Jay, thanks. Jay Heck, Common Cause. Thanks, Jay.